When most people think about the immune system, they picture white blood cells circulating in the bloodstream, or perhaps the lymph nodes in the neck swelling during an infection. But what rarely comes to mind is the digestive tract, this long, complex tube that begins at the mouth and ends 30 feet later. And yet, nearly 70% of your immune system resides there. This is not accidental. From an evolutionary standpoint, the gut is the body's primary point of contact with the outside world. Every bite of food, every sip of water, every microscopic organism we ingest passes through this system. The body understands something profound. What enters through the gut has the potential to nourish or to harm, so it placed the majority of its defensive forces at that border. Inside the intestinal lining lives a dense network of immune cells known as gut-associated lymphoid tissue. These cells are not passive. They are constantly evaluating, distinguishing friend from foe, deciding what to tolerate and what to attack. This process requires intelligence and balance. An immune system that overreacts creates allergies and autoimmune conditions. One that underreacts allows infections and disease to take hold. The gut is where this calibration happens. Think of the gut as both a shield and a teacher. It trains the immune system through daily exposure to microbes and nutrients. When the gut environment is diverse and balanced, the immune response becomes measured, resilient, and adaptive. But when the gut lining is inflamed or compromised, the immune system receives distorted signals. Confusion replaces clarity. Inflammation replaces precision. There is also a psychological dimension to this. We often speak about gut feelings, about intuition. Biologically, the gut and immune system are deeply connected to the nervous system. When the gut is inflamed, stress responses increase. When it is balanced, the body feels safer. Immunity is not just about fighting pathogens. It is about maintaining internal harmony. If 70% of your immune system lives in your gut, then every meal becomes an immunological decision. Every lifestyle habit becomes a vote for resilience or vulnerability. So the real question is not whether your immune system is strong. The real question is, what are you feeding the headquarters that protects you every single day? Now, once we understand that the gut is the headquarters of the immune system, the next question becomes, who exactly is living there? Inside your digestive tract reside trillions of microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, collectively known as the microbiome. This is not an exaggeration or a fringe theory. It is one of the most profound discoveries in modern biology. You are not a single organism. You are an ecosystem. And like any ecosystem, balance determines survival. Within this internal world, there is a constant negotiation taking place between beneficial microbes and opportunistic ones. The so-called good bacteria are not simply passive residents. They produce antimicrobial compounds, compete with harmful pathogens for space and nutrients, regulate inflammation, and even help manufacture vitamins. They communicate directly with immune cells, shaping how aggressively or calmly the body responds to threats. But here is where it becomes psychologically and philosophically interesting. The microbiome mirrors your lifestyle. It reflects your daily choices with brutal honesty. Diets high in refined sugar and ultra-processed foods tend to nourish inflammatory species. Chronic stress alters gut motility and microbial diversity. Overuse of antibiotics, while sometimes necessary, can wipe out beneficial strains, leaving the ecosystem destabilized. When diversity declines, resilience declines. In nature, a forest with many species can survive storms, droughts, and disease. A monoculture collapses easily. The same principle applies inside you. A diverse microbiome trains the immune system to respond precisely, not excessively, not excessively, not inadequately. It teaches tolerance. It reinforces boundaries. it maintains equilibrium. There is also an emotional dimension to this balance. Emerging research consistently shows connections between gut bacteria and mood regulation. When the microbiome is disrupted, rates of anxiety and depression tend to increase. This is not coincidence. The gut and brain communicate continuously through neural, hormonal, and immune pathways. Internal imbalance often manifests as both physical inflammation and psychological instability. So when we talk about strengthening immunity, we are not talking about boosting it blindly. We are talking about cultivating harmony within a living ecosystem. The goal is not domination over microbes. It is partnership with them. The state of your microbiome is not determined by chance. It is shaped daily, meal by meal, habit by habit, thought by thought. The question is simple. Are you feeding allies that protect you, or conditions that quietly work against you? Once we understand the gut as an immune headquarters and the microbiome as a living ecosystem, we arrive at a more uncomfortable truth. What happens when the barrier itself begins to fail? The intestinal lining is designed to be selectively permeable. It allows nutrients to pass into the bloodstream while keeping toxins, pathogens, and partially digested food particles contained within the digestive tract. This requires structural integrity at the microscopic level, tight junctions between cells that function like gatekeepers. When those junctions are strong, the system works with remarkable precision. But chronic stress, ultra-processed diets, alcohol overuse, infections, and persistent inflammation can weaken this barrier. The tight junctions loosen. The filter becomes compromised. What should remain inside the gut begins to leak into the bloodstream. This phenomenon is often referred to as increased intestinal permeability, or what many call leaky gut. Now, consider the immune implications. When foreign particles enter circulation, the immune system interprets them as threats. It responds accordingly. But if this exposure is constant, the immune response becomes chronic. Low-grade, systemic inflammation develops. Not the dramatic inflammation of an acute infection, but the quiet, persistent kind that underlies many modern disorders, autoimmune conditions, metabolic dysfunction, even certain mood disturbances. Philosophically, this is a boundary problem. Health depends on clear boundaries, knowing what belongs and what does not. When the gut barrier is compromised, the body loses clarity. It begins reacting to things that were never meant to cross that line. Confusion at the cellular level often mirrors confusion at the systemic level. There is also a psychological resonance here. We speak metaphorically about not having boundaries, about letting too much in. Biologically, the gut barrier functions in precisely this way. When it weakens, the internal environment becomes overstimulated, overreactive, and inflamed. This is why inflammation is not simply a physical process. It is a signal. It tells us that protection has shifted into overdrive because containment has failed. If we ignore that signal, inflammation becomes the new normal. But inflammation is never neutral. It slowly erodes resilience. The deeper question is this: are you reinforcing the boundaries that protect you, or are your daily habits quietly dissolving them from within? If the gut is the headquarters, if the microbiome is the ecosystem, and if the barrier is the boundary that protects you, then the final question becomes practical. What do we actually do with this information? Strengthening the gut is not about chasing the latest supplement trend or searching for a miracle probiotic. It begins with fundamentals, the quiet, consistent habits that shape biology over time. Fiber-rich foods, diverse vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, seeds. These are not just nutrients, they are signals. They feed beneficial microbes, encourage diversity, and reinforce the intestinal lining. Fermented foods introduce living organisms that can support microbial balance. These are not exotic interventions. They are evolutionary foods. Equally important is what we reduce. Excess sugar, ultra-processed products, and chronic overconsumption create an environment where inflammatory microbes thrive. Alcohol in excess erodes the gut lining. Repeated, unnecessary antibiotic use destabilizes the ecosystem. Every exposure either strengthens the terrain or weakens it. But nutrition alone is incomplete. Stress profoundly alters gut function. When the nervous system is in a constant fight-or-flight state, blood flow shifts away from digestion, motility changes, microbial balance shifts, the immune system becomes more reactive. Sleep deprivation compounds this effect, impairing repair processes that occur overnight. Hydration influences mucus layers that protect the gut lining. Movement stimulates healthy motility and microbial diversity. What we are really discussing is coherence. The immune system thrives when the body perceives safety and stability. A regulated nervous system supports a balanced gut. A balanced gut trains a measured immune response. It is a closed loop of resilience. There is also a philosophical layer here. Health is not built through intensity. It is built through consistency. It is built through consistency. Dramatic short-term efforts rarely create long-term change. The microbiome responds to patterns, not bursts of motivation. Small daily actions, repeated over months and years, reshape the internal ecosystem in profound ways. You cannot control every pathogen you encounter. You cannot eliminate every stressor. But you can influence the terrain in which your immune system operates. And ultimately, that is the point. Immunity is not something you demand from your body. It is something you cultivate.